So I'm starting to do the steering column rebuild. I sort of touched it up with a bit of paint. You can see the two tubes. So as I'd mentioned, what I've heard is this thing is pretty difficult to put into the tube. So I started to push it into the tube, but what happens is that, so I thought, oh, I'll get a suitable diameter pipe and push it in, but you can see it will start to this squeezes in like this at the two ends when you put it in, obviously. So then you can actually, you need to put some sort of pipe on something. So I was like thinking, I didn't have any diameter pipe, but I found a piece of scrap sprinkler pipe. And what I actually did was, since fortunately as I got one of these projects, is that my son from college has bought a cheap $300 lathe. Seems to be okay for minor things. I turned this down so the same diameter of this pipe, and what I did was I lined this hole up as much as I could in the same plane as where the hole is, and then I pushed it down, and it actually did go down in the tube. Now again, I think the secret is you want to make sure these dimples in this plastic thing or whatever it's called are lined up so you can actually push it. So obviously it gets to this point and it will get stuck in this one, but you got to push it through even more. So just leave it off a bit and then push it down. And I got this tube, and it's just a bit tight, but it's okay. I think the tighter the better. As I said, it's a piece of plastic, so it's easy to turn down. It's not even the greatest thing, but it works okay. And I was able to put this part in the tube. I will do the second one. I think this one's easy, obviously, because it's just here, but this is the most difficult one. So it's just some pointers that you'll need. Okay, again, I'm gluing a video together. This is really not easy. So here's something I did, is that when I pushed this in, it wasn't completely round. A little bit was squished flat. So it's difficult to get this tube in. So fortunately, as I keep everything under the sun, what I have here is an original, this is an original Triumph Stag shock insert. It actually goes in this tube, and it seems that this diameter tube is the same as this diameter tube. So what I did was I pushed this in, and it was able to go beyond this part, and then so I opened it up at least, and then I pushed this steering column in from this end. Obviously I've got this one in, so you don't have too much wiggle space, but I was like wondering how I'm going to do this, but it's in now, which is good. But as I said, maybe when you take this thing, you look at the sides, which has the, if it's chamfered slightly differently. But I did notice when I pushed this one in, as I said, it wasn't completely round, and it would have prevented this from going in. So, but however, as I said, repeat this again, this end went in. I was able to push this in quite well, probably here, and then I pushed it in, and now the column's back together. But again, look at the things that I've been playing with, and I mean, as I said, machined this to push that down in the first place. I've got this scrap piece, always good to keep some stuff. Anyway, so that's the tube back together. Anyway, that's the way I did it. If you have another way, let me know. I'd appreciate it. Good luck. Just adding, I used a bit of Dawn washing up liquid. That always helps to slide things in, but it's all, this tube's back together. Okay, doing this one-handed again, so it's a bit difficult, but this is the bearing. There's one bearing here that goes in the housing. Let me get that over there. One at the top, one at the bottom. And what I noticed is that you put the steering column in and then you clamp it down, And I've just realized that this bearing, there's made a series of ball bearings that sit in a cup, and it rides up on this. So ideally you want this as tight as possible so that the steering column rides on these bearings. If it's loose, I suppose what could happen is that that bush, or this clip that holds the system, the whole thing together, could be riding up on the bottom of the cup. Let's call it a cup, and that could cause potential grinding, maybe minor grinding. So ideally, maybe use that ring that I mentioned earlier when I was dismantling it, that Tony Hart gave, to compress it. Now people do, what they do is, I will show you this, is when they put that ring on there, you want to make sure it's as tight as possible, and you use a pipe to pull the steering column up as much as possible using the steering wheel bolt, steering wheel nut, and thread like a pipe on it, and it pulls the column up. But anyway, I'll show you that when I'm doing. But anyway, what I wanted, instead of a long story, but ideally you want the bearing to be rubbing on the column and not the back of the clip. So that's why you should make it as tight as possible. And as mentioned, there's two, one at the bottom, one at the top. Feels a bit rough, but I will squeeze some grease in there before I reassemble. So I'm going to start reassembling the steering column, and I used Evo Rust on the end of the tube to clean that up. I probably will put a grease on the sliding shaft. A bit hesitant because it could generate dirt and rust, grease and dirt and things, but I'll probably lightly oil it and then grease it. Another thing that came up to mind is this universal joint at the end is a little bit tight. It's not binding or anything, but the discussion was, on one of the forums I put down, is if I put Plus Gas, WD-40 or PB Blaster, these are sealed bearing caps and you can't really do much with them. So if I put PB Blast down, it's going to take whatever grease is in there. So I decided just to put oil on there. Compared to the other one, it is a bit tighter, but I'm just going to leave it. If it had some high spots, then I would like the universal joints in the half shafts, but this seems okay. I did put the bearings back in here, and since my son has a lathe, I made a little tool out of plastic to push these out so they don't damage them. As I said, they're quite expensive, so I greased them up. They're little bearings that sit, they're all ball bearings that sit on the top, and it's all greased up, ready to go back. So I'll again stop the recording, do a bit more assembly, and then I'll just show you what I'm doing. But there wasn't really much to show that for this thing, but I did put the wavy washer in between. As I said, the wavy washer goes in between the big flat washer and that special washer, which is this one here. And then what I've seen is this some people put this little star washer to stop this screw from turning. It wasn't there, but I will put that in, and then put that in up that end. Seems to be working okay. This is more or less the column rebuilt. I'm going to be reusing my bearings and everything. The only thing I'm going to use from the new kit is the wavy washer. So what happens is, what I was told is that special washer goes against this bush. Put the wavy washer on over the sleeve, then you put the second washer on top so it clamps it, and then the other side there should be a washer. So basically goes like this. Again, I'm one-handed, so sorry. Oh yeah, I need the obviously the other bush on this side that goes in here, so it'll basically be sandwiched together, and then on this end, or I suppose it doesn't really matter, but I'll do it, is the circuit glows on in the end, and I'll show that when it's all together, but that's how the configuration is. So what I'm doing is, again, I'm using that ring instead of the serrated washer, but to clamp the steering column up, and you want to make sure it's very tight. The whole thing is tight because you want the bearings to be rubbing on the shaft itself. And so what I did, got a piece of pipe, got a oversized washer, so I tightened it up as much as I can, and then clamped it up as relatively tight as possible, and not overdo it, obviously. And then I'm just going to use the Allen key to clamp it to the column. This kit that I have, the actual grub screws are actually metric. They're I think 1.5 mil, so not that I carry metric Allen keys, so just be careful if you lose one by mistake. And then, so more or less, once this is on, the column is pretty much done. Pretty simple actually to put everything back together. Okay, so these were these special bolts for the anti-theft gizmo on the ignition lock. So what I did was I went to here in the US we have Home Depot. I picked up some of these socket cap screws, as you can see here, and last couple of days I've been lucky enough to have my kids lathe, so I machined a little bit off the shoulder so that it actually fits in there. But I do remember not doing all this before. I just packed it with washers and just attached it on there. As mentioned earlier, this is a US Stag 71, so it has, I think, haven't confirmed, but door buzzer thing on the ignition lock. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but looks like someone's had this apart before, and there is the way to take the barrel out. I can't find it now, but there's a pin that you can drill out, and someone's definitely done something to this car. I just noticed that. Unfortunately I can't. Let me try finding it, and let me stop recording and find it. Somebody drilled it out, but there's a pin in there, and that, if you can get to that pin, pull that pin out, you still need the key, I think, and then you can pull the barrel out of the lock. And it looks like someone's already done something before. So I think I'm putting the turn signal indicator and the wiper stalk on, and obviously need to make sure where it goes. It can sit on the shaft, but you want to make sure that you have enough clearance. So for example, with the cover on, it's gonna, and I put it onto beam, it's gonna interfere with the cover. So obviously I have to push this thing further back slightly. Maybe when I had taken it off I should have made a note where exactly it is on the line. So I think I'm putting the turn signal indicator and the wiper stalk on, and obviously need to make sure where it goes. It can sit on the shaft, but you want to make sure that you have enough clearance. So for example, with the cover on, it's gonna, and I put it onto beam, it's gonna interfere with the cover. So obviously I have to push this thing further back slightly. Maybe when I had taken it off I should have made a note where exactly it is on the line. Okay, so the column's more or less back together. I just wanted to point out one thing. Here's that indicator or turn signal cancellation thing, and it can, if you look, this is that spare one. If you look at the shaft, there's that lock mechanism on both sides, so it can be you can lock it both 180 degrees off. So maybe a recommendation is when you assemble this on the car, put this at the 9 o'clock position. That means it's in between the turn signal, and take the key out and put the steering wheel on level, and then the next part is to actually level it with the steering rack. And as I mentioned in one of the videos, there's a dimple on the cover of the steering rack that is, yeah, when you take, and this is a steering, when you take this cover off, not the cover off, but there's a plug that you can unthread and you can push it down, and you will see dimple implies, sorry about that, when it's straight, just putting that away. So this is more or less ready to go. I just put the spring back on this. I touched it up, but yeah, just left it as is. All the wires are back, and have to be careful with this plastic, it's a bit old. This is a Federal Stag, so we have you know, park, off, and what is it, headlights, and then fog lights. You've got to press it in, then you get fog lights. So that is the column rebuilt. Now I'm going to go back and attempt to finish off this. A couple of things on the steering, what's it called, the universal joints. I couldn't find the proper bolt, but I wanted to make sure that the smooth part of the bolt clears where the shaft goes on. So I actually had to get a 2-inch long bolt. I cut it down because the clean part of the unthreaded part of the bolt is it. So yeah, let me start again. I bought a 2-inch bolt, and because the plain unthreaded part of the bolt clears the will clear the teeth of the steering column shaft, so I just thought I'd do that.